Which time of year do you think is best for traveling? Which cities shouldn't be missed if I do a Eurotrip?
Paris, if you forget to travel, you'll never be able to travel again because
This is not the time to be lazy. Rome, Rome.
for
Madrid.
Madrid.
Well, how are you, travel companions? We're launching a new format to help you on a trip to Europe. The idea was a bit about all those questions you have, from how many days you'll need to plan that trip, that first time in Europe, which cities to choose, how to make reservations. Well, I am Europa Accompagnata, and we welcome the other part of Europa Accompagnata, which is Fernando. Fernando, how are you?
Well, welcome. We hope this turns out to your liking. I mean, I like the idea of planning that first trip to Europe and giving you tips, telling you how we suggest, what's the best way to do it.
We'll start by checking the first thing, right? We both agree on that. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we don't. Each of us has our own way of organizing things and thinking. But well, that's kind of the idea behind the debate, about how it goes. We're just doing it like that.
However she wants, so that's how it is.
Don't believe her, don't believe her. The first thing we're going to check is all the documentation. We're going to go get our passports, and we're going to make sure they have at least 6 months before they expire. Some countries, I believe, accept passports that expire within 3 months of your departure date, if everything is fine. Ideally, you should know that once you enter that country, your passport should be valid for at least 6 months. That's the general rule. And then, most travelers from Latin American countries don't need a visa to enter, but there will be some that do. So first of all, check that. And the ETAs, which has been delayed, will eventually be required for entry, but not yet. In our case, we're now traveling to the United Kingdom. You have to do the ETA. The ETA is done online, and it does have a cost.
£20.
£20, okay?
Well, usually, at least for us now that we did it, I don't know, in about 20 minutes, we already had the answer. I think the next step would be to determine how many days that trip is going to take. It depends on each person. That will depend on each person's vacation time, on what kind of leave they have. But I think the ideal for me would be 20 days, at least 15 to start a trip. To Europe from America, we have everything. We have around 10 hours of travel at least. So with that, what we make sure of is that we know we'll have 1 day to go and another day to come back.
What time of year do you think is best for traveling?
After the trip we took this winter, we discovered that you can travel in all seasons of the year. For us, I think the best has been yes.
I agree. Spring.
Autumn.
Sorry. Spring, autumn. I think they are the best. They are the best seasons. But also, for example, in your case, you were a bit hesitant to travel in the winter. And I think when we did it in winter, you ended up liking it. You ended up liking it, and it seemed fine to us.
But there are downsides to each season because, as we said, in spring and autumn, the rates are a bit cheaper. The days are long, the sun rises early, it gets dark late. The temperatures aren't low, and they're not so high that it becomes a problem to be walking around. And there aren't as many people as if you were traveling. In summer, since in summer we have higher rates, a lot of people, and in winter we have lower rates. If they don't fall on the holidays, no. If they don't fall on Christmas and New Year's, because prices go up then too. And there are also a lot of people, but you have the downside of winter, but there are people who like winter. But regardless of that, I mean, the day starts later and it gets dark much earlier. So I don't know, but our recommendation would be September.
September, October. October, May, June, my favorites by far are always May. Or September, those are the 2 months. The sun rises. It's just that I prefer it. And as for how crowded it gets, the crowds in summer, I think that's what holds me back the most. Besides everything you mentioned, I think that the issue of how crowded it is, that there are places where it will take a really long time to get in because of the lines and everything, and I also agree about the prices.
It's something for people who are interested in going to the beach, right?
Well, that's another topic.
But it's the same thing. I mean, if you want to go to the beach, maybe May, June, the end of May, beginning of June, there are already places where you can go to the beach. And there won't be so many people because in July and August it's going to be packed with people.
A clear example, I think, is the Amalfi Coast, which Zelda and I found beautiful to drive. I think it's one of the most beautiful roads in the world, but we did it in May and in September. We never did it in the summer. In the summer, from what I've seen, it's something that's practically impossible, and it's even restricted for some people.
We were able to, and we could go to the beach at that time as well. I mean, that's what I'm saying.
Once it's decided, well, you have the number of days. You have the dates when you're going to go. So now it's time for us to start making tentative itineraries. The first decision you have to make, I think, is how many countries you're going to visit on that first trip to Europe. If you ask us, we're not fans of those Eurotrips that visit 15 cities in 15 days. For me, no, it's exhausting. You end up not really getting to know the places. But we also understand that for many of you, that's the ideal European trip. And, well, that's okay. We give advice for both situations. In our case, we always choose 1 or 2 countries. We think that's ideal. In fact, when we made our first trip to Europe, which was when we got married, we chose Spain and a bit of Portugal. So the first decision is that, well, what am I going to do? Am I going to choose just one country? Am I going to Italy, for example, and just do Italy? Am I going to Spain and just do Spain? Or not? I'd rather focus on capital cities and visit different ones. That will also change things a bit, because if you choose just one country, it won't just be the big cities, but also small towns. Yes. And that opens up another option. Should I drive or use public transportation for everything? If you're going to business, thank you.
Car, right? It would be.
No. I was telling you in the case of, yes, I understood you. In the case that it's just one country. Like Monica said, personally, I would focus on one country.
But also the language thing. Personally, I mean, Monica speaks English. I don't.
Well, Monica actually speaks quite a bit. She says she doesn't.
But I think it's really about attitude of the person you're talking to, whoever you end up dealing with, who wants to help you and puts in the effort with gestures. These days, with a phone and a translator, we can communicate. So I don't think that would stop me from choosing the destination.
And that brings me to my other question. For your taste, we're not going to talk about their preferences. So then there. Which cities are a must if I do a Eurotrip to see several countries? Which cities do I absolutely have to visit on that first trip to Europe?
Paris, Rome, London, Madrid.
Barcelona, and I would stop there. Yes.
If not Paris?
Paris, no, I would stay. Paris, well...
But now, what's wrong with you?
Yes. But I'm telling you as a base. Or, well, it's a matter of taste, like we were saying, right? Isn't it? And so it's going to depend a lot on, like Fernando was saying, that initial plan that leads you to want to visit Europe. In many cases, it will be about looking for your roots. So it will also depend a bit on which country you're looking at. And in other cases, it will be history that leads you. Other things will be what move you.
Which cultural cities are your roots? We picked Spain since my grandmother was Spanish, and I wanted to see if I could find her house.
And if later I would add, after the one you mentioned, well, yes, we can add Prague, Budapest. I think the city is Berlin. And maybe for a second trip, it doesn't have to be. It could be for the first one, to go for countries like Poland, Romania, Bulgaria, honestly, or the Balkan countries that we visited on our European summer trip last year. We visited Montenegro, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Serbia, and honestly, we loved it. I mean, wherever you look, I think Europe has great potential to make us fall in love very easily.
Without a doubt, you're going to like it and you're definitely going to have a good time. We are of the idea of doing one country instead of so many big cities because we want to experience more of the experience and to find the small towns, those that have a certain charm. Even though the cities are what we know and what we expect to see, the small towns have the particularity of surprising us with things we didn't expect. No matter how much we study them and when preparing the trip we search, when you're actually there, it's usually an impression that surpasses what you knew or what you thought you knew about everything.
Yes. And the second question comes a bit from this, from choosing the cities. And then once we've chosen them, how do you know how many days to spend in each one? Because that's going to be part of building the itinerary. I think that one of the ways to decide how many days you want to stay is to watch a lot of videos. We have videos of all those cities, already with the itinerary day by day. So you can watch them and see, well, I'm interested in doing that. No, not that. Honestly, what they're showing in that video doesn't interest me. Maybe there are dives or things that we show and that you aren't interested in doing. And then you can figure out how many days you would spend in that city. Then think about a city, for example, Madrid. Let's say I'll spend 3 days there. Those 3 days, will those days be just to explore Madrid? Or do I want to take a day trip to a nearby city? For example, I want to go to Toledo. I'll add that to those 3 days. Will I spend 4 days or take one away for a day trip? Those are calculations you need to make. So, make sure to take note of everything. Get ready with an Excel sheet and write everything down. Everything, everything. Each city you want to visit, how many days you would spend there. And speaking of how many days you would spend, how many days would you spend? How much time would you spend in Paris?
That's a whole topic. And well, yes, Paris, you will definitely explore it in those 5 days.
Yes, I agree.
Well, I don't know.
Mar? Rome? No.
Rome 4,
Madrid?
Madrid. 3 is enough to get around Madrid.
London?
London, no less than 3, 4 maybe.
That's what we meant. Barcelona, for example.
Barcelona 3 as well.
We're talking about some cities as examples. Obviously, we could go on.
I think it's what Monica just said. Watch a lot of videos, look for a lot of information, and decide based on that. They're different things.
There are different options that you have to check at that moment. Like, okay, how much time am I going to give to each city? If I'm going to visit places near the city, like small towns, what we do is visit the city, like Fernando said. And then, since we usually travel by car, we pick one or a few small towns and mix big cities with small towns. Why? 2 reasons. Why? Because we like it. We really enjoy visiting small towns. We love it. But also, we mix it up because it gives us time to rest. You don't need the same amount of energy to explore a big city as you do to explore a small town. So, with that combination, you save your energy and pace yourself so you can last the 20 days, 30 days, or however long you'll be there. That's one of the ways we do it. The other thing is to think about which city, where I'm going to start the itinerary, from which city, and where I'm going to end it. Because that leads to the next point, which is what we book first.
Let's start with the flight. That's what we do. It's the first thing we book because the closer the travel date gets, the more expensive it becomes. So the way to make it cheaper is to book the flight first.
All right, so let's focus first on the flight, so you have an idea of what to look for and where to search. It's just crazy. I left it open so you can take a look. I think the first thing would be to use a search engine to do one. A quick search to get a good idea of how the prices are looking for those dates. And then, yes, there you can search on each airline's website and also on travel agencies that you trust. And there you can compare flights. What do you think a ticket should include? What should they look for?
Well, the price, but along with the price, it's also about this because sometimes you can get a very cheap price, but you end up with 42 hours of travel and 5 layovers, which in our opinion is never justified. because in those 15 or 20 days we have, time is also money. And then, well, checked luggage is included, carry-on is included. That's what you can take, and at the same time, that's where you decide what you're going to bring with you. When you travel, when we travel from the Americas, we usually go with a checked suitcase. It's different for those who travel within Europe, since a carry-on is enough for the trip, but from here, we usually go for many days. So,
Yes, if you can do it with a carry-on, that would be ideal. But from my own experience, I know it's difficult. Maybe I think minimizing as much as possible would be best. One checked suitcase between the two of us.
yes.
Not us, honestly. We each check one. No, no. We never got to that point. But honestly, since we use the car afterwards, we load them in the car. And in many places, we just get out with the carry-on. And we leave them. It will be different if you all do all those trips by train.
And also what we bring. A lot.
Equipment. A lot of filming equipment.
So one of the carry-ons and a backpack are for equipment. So we couldn't fit anything else if we could take more. The carry-on with clothes, with things to wear, probably with a small bag too.
Yes, we would manage. Here, I'll show you on the screen, more or less. When you do a search on Skyscanner, you'll see them highlighted there. The days, how are the prices? Are they lower or higher, depending on the date? And if you can choose the date, you can check the prices there. But we'll talk more about budgets and all that later.
Well, after having the flight booked, considering all those alternatives, our next step is flights, car, and transportation in general, and hotels. These are three categories that, as time goes by and the closer we get to the travel date, they usually get more expensive. So after we have the itinerary set up, it's the flight, then the car, knowing that we usually do the first city, a big city. So there we don't take a car.
We didn't clarify that for you. As long as it's only cities, what you're going to do is rule out the car. Just like that, or plan it out. We love using the car so we can explore everything. The countryside and the small towns.
Well, the big city and the freedom it gives you, you're not tied down to having to be at the station at 8. Because if you arrive at 8:05, the flight or the train is gone. On the other hand, it gives us the freedom to say, well, tomorrow we'll leave earlier because we have so many kilometers to cover, or tomorrow we'll stay here until noon because we love the place and there are still things we want to see. That gives you a kind of happiness you don't get when you have tickets, whether it's by plane, train, or bus, whatever it is. Entonces, so if we try to do the first one, if there are two big cities we visit, we try to do the not having the car is fine if it's just us, but when we're with more people, we use it because then you have all the transfers and everything, so it works out. Yes.
Because many times we go with older people, with adults. So that's when things start to get complicated. So that's where it got a little complicated to explain to them where we make reservations and how we search and all that.
In Italy, we made reservations through Trajectai, which is a relatively new company that has adapted vehicles, mainly for us, those of us coming from the Americas, since, as we mentioned, we bring suitcases and all that. So the car, bigger cars with space to carry luggage. Besides, they give you a lot of solutions like being able to rent a small cooler or a thermos for made for those from Argentina.
I think that besides the personalized attention, that's what I would emphasize the most, because Claudio is attentive to every single detail. And another thing is that it already includes full insurance, which is something we always recommend having.
And it makes it easier for you to have someone you can communicate with in Spanish to clear up any doubts you might have. A quick note on this, I mean, for traveling, if you're going to rent a car, bring your international driving permit. You might hear people say it's not necessary, that they weren't asked for it, that maybe they won't ask for it in Italy. Every time they didn't ask for it at some places, they didn't ask for it when we picked up the car at the rental agency. But if you get stopped by the police, the times we went, every time they didn't ask us for it somewhere. They didn't ask for it when we picked up the car at the rental agency. But if you get stopped by the police or if you get into an accident, they're going to ask you for it. And then the problem becomes something else. Does it have a cost? Yes, it has a cost. It's minimal compared to what we're going to spend, all the investment we're going to make on this trip. So we recommend that you take it. The international driving permit.
The international driving permit. In each country, they are processed in different places, not just for Uruguay. That international driving permit site, libreteinternational.com, in Argentina, I think they do it at the ATA. I honestly don't know about the rest of the countries, but you can Google it and it will probably show up.
For me, it's the best, it's the easiest. You do it online.
Yes.
If you do it in advance, they'll even send it to your home. So it's a solution and it's more affordable.
Of everything we're talking about, I'll leave it for you later in the description. The information, because I know that all the links, because here I'll try to show them on the screen, but there are some things I can't. Thank you. The same goes for the rental companies. We were just talking about routes. We have discount coupons and all that, so that's it. So we don't go on too long or explain it now. We'll leave it for you in the description. Yes, also, on the blog.
Is
everything and maps. A lot of things that we will keep talking about later.
Well, with Trayectos, when you contact them, say you came through Europa Acompañada and they get the discount. On Discover Cars, if you go through the Europa Acompañada link.
Yes, everything you find in the search engine already comes with the discount, which as you can see is very easy. In the search engine, you just enter the city where you'll pick it up, where you'll return it, and the dates.
Very intuitive. If you go, make sure to select full insurance like we did here to avoid any issues.
Yes, always.
Honestly, we've had some issues before. When we returned the car, they withheld the deposit until the repair costs came out. They sent it to us, we requested the invoice, they sent us the invoice, they refunded us the difference. We sent that invoice to Discover Cars, and Discover Cars reimbursed us the money in a few days. Honestly, we highly recommend it because we've already tried it. Be careful if you're going to leave the country. There are rental companies that charge you extra for that, so make sure to check it.
And not only is there an extra charge, but sometimes they don't even let you take the car across the border to certain countries. So before you make the reservation, be careful with that and check the description. Which countries you can take that car to. There will be a cost, but the first thing is to know if you can take the car out of the country and which countries you can go to. Discussing Western Europe is straightforward, as most countries are accessible. In Eastern Europe, however, the situation changes and some countries are off limits. You keep looking for another car until you find one that lets you do everything you want.
There are rental companies inside the airport, and there are others that have a shuttle, but they're outside the airport. That depends on what works best for you, what is more convenient for you. Generally, the ones outside are a bit cheaper, but they have another complication, which is getting around. They also have the advantage of offering free cancellation for almost all of them.
So that's it.
That's an advantage because we can do it, and then we might find, or we might have changed the plan and cancel that one and book another one. Well, I think the car situation is settled. We have the car. How do we continue?
How do we continue?
How do we continue?
Let's move on to the hotels, which I always book myself. And you can tell that I always book them myself. We booked it on Booking. You can see the website there. Some people may want an apartment and consider Airbnb. Why didn't we choose Airbnb? Because sometimes they cancel at the last minute, and you end up without the accommodation you had chosen, and you have to change it. But well, it will depend on you and the ideas you have. You can also find apartments here on Booking. Well, be clear about what you're looking for when you're searching for a hotel. I want a hotel that's well located, that's in the historic center, and maybe I'm willing to give up a front desk, breakfast, or even a conventional hotel and just stay in some other kind of lodging. Or I prefer a higher end hotel, but it's far from the city. Usually they're not in the historic centers because those are very old buildings. So, the hotels. The modern buildings are outside. And then I have to take public transportation, a metro or a bus, to get to the center. That's something you need to think about carefully, depending on your preferences. What are ours? Location, location, and location. That's what we choose first. Then, within that, we see which one we like the most. But usually there are accommodations in old mansions, buildings that don't have elevators. So that's another thing you have to look at. You're going with children, with elderly people, or you have reduced mobility. This type of hotel or accommodation usually doesn't have an elevator. In Europe, it's common to have no elevator and use stairs instead. So pay close attention to that. I can show you a video of a hotel that we loved and tell you it's beautiful, but maybe it doesn't suit what you need because it might have a lot of stairs.
Yes, that's fundamental. What each person needs, what they want, and what they're willing to give up. Because without a doubt, if you're going to tell me you want a 4-star or 5-star hotel with an elevator,
That's in Principe Square. So we prioritize location and having parking because we're going by car. It depends on that. Also, air conditioning. It's common for old buildings not to have it. If you're traveling in the middle of summer, check that so you know you won't be too hot. When we travel in the shoulder season, it's something we usually don't look at. We don't have it. Then, whether breakfast is included or not. Is that important to you? Whether you want breakfast included or not. Maybe you just have breakfast at the cafe on the corner. That really depends a lot on each person's preferences. That's why it's sometimes hard to agree. No. When it comes to choosing a hotel, my advice is, this is not the time to be lazy. And when I say not to be lazy, I mean that on the same website, and for each accommodation, you'll find the reviews left by other tourists, right? So, read all the reviews, check the rating it has, whether it's below 7 or 7 and above. I try to look for places that have a rating of 8 or higher. That helps me choose. Those are the things that help us make a decision. You can filter all of that, like being in the city center, having parking, whatever you need. But the filter, yes, the one I always choose, just like Fernando was saying earlier about the car, is the free cancellation option. The price may be slightly higher with the free cancellation option, but it's honestly worth it. Because when you have to change your plans, having free cancellation means that if we have to cancel everything because our plans changed, we know they'll give us our money back if we've already paid.
and how many days of free cancellation do they offer? Some have 15 days, but most of the time, when they offer free cancellation, it's 48 hours.
Yes. And when it comes to apartments, I'm talking about booking. I'm not as up to date with Airbnb as I am with Booking. In the case of Booking, usually, when it comes to apartments, there are fewer days for cancellation, meaning the free cancellation period ends further away from the check-in date. So, that's something they look at. Yes, free cancellation, but until when? Until the day before or 2 days before? That's usually what's normal, 48 hours or 24 hours. If it's less than that, I don't know if I would pay the difference for free cancellation. If maybe I have 15 days left before my stay, I don't think so. So we made the reservations, we booked the flight, we booked the car, we booked the hotels. We would still need the internal trips in case we don't have a car. And then it's a matter of checking between city routes to see if it's better for me to take a plane, a train, or a bus. But when you go to look, I think we both agree on this. Don't just look at the prices, but also at how many hours it's going to take you. Doing it one way or another. Sometimes we think the plane is faster, but with the amount of time we have to get there early, check in our luggage and all that, it doesn't really work for us either.
And then they drop us far from the city because the good thing about the train is that it usually leaves you in the city center. On the other hand, if you fly, the airport is on the outskirts, then you have to pick up your luggage and then you have to take a train to the city center.
On websites like Omeo, for example, you can enter which city you're traveling from and to, and there it will give you the options for the means of transportation available, the number of hours, and the prices. And then you can evaluate a bit there. Well, we have everything. We have the intermediate routes, the city, and everything else. So what's our next step? We're going to continue with the itineraries for each city. There, well, you can explain a little more because usually you've made them. I mean, you're the one putting together the maps.
The same thing, well, watching videos, looking for what there is to see in each city or town, and choosing what we want to do. What I do is put together a map with the places
On Google Maps.
And I start marking them. After I have marked the 10 places I want to see, I make an itinerary in an Excel spreadsheet checking their opening hours. Well, there I can already see if there's an entrance fee, the schedule, and the days it's open. Looking at the map, I plan a route, the most efficient one, from where I arrive to where I go, depending a lot on the schedules, right?
You set it up at first, at the beginning. You prepare it in Google Maps, but then you end up making it in My Maps. Because then you can add icons, even with numbers, and everything, and that's where I prepare the map, which are the maps that I often leave on the blog for you to use. If you watch our videos, you know that afterwards I leave a post on the blog for each of the cities. So you can use those same itineraries within the city, modifying some things that you're not going to visit, like we talked about. But I think you're already going to save a lot of time with that. Speaking of itineraries, the advice that I think both of us give to everyone is that when you arrive in a new city, you do a free tour. Absolutely. I think starting with a free tour is the best way to get your bearings in the city and get to know it. That doesn't mean you're going to see everything with the free tour, but it will give you the guidelines, both historical and geographical, to help you get oriented in that city, and they'll also give you recommendations for places to eat. Yes, for eating, for visiting.
What's worth visiting, what isn't. And usually the guides are very receptive and they help you get oriented in the city. For me, they're essential. The free tour to get to know the first city, I always use Madrid as an example. We had been to Madrid twice and used the bus a lot there, and it was only the third time that we finally did the free tour. And when we did the free tour, I realized that everything we had walked around and visited was actually all covered by the tour.
Yes.
You could do everything on foot. So the free tour helps you get your bearings, know where you are, and get information from someone who actually lives there, which is always important.
Speaking of the tourist bus, I want to tell you that if you're traveling with children or with older people, we've done it ourselves. That last option is highly recommended because you get on the bus, and from the top of the bus, you can see the city. An audio guide explains everything you're seeing. And if you liked something and want to get off, you get off, look around, and then get back on. I think in those cases, it's highly recommended. And speaking of which, since you just mentioned it,
we're talking about both the tourist bus and the free tours. You can book them on Civitatis and on Google Globo.
The free tours on Civitatis or Guru Walk, and then the tourist bus, Civitatis or the Deer Guide. But as I said, I leave all of that for you on the blog or in the description. The second thing I would check in a city would be whether the museums are free. Many museums in Europe have a day when they are open for free, or hours when they are open for free. You have to check that in each city. For example, in the case of Madrid, which was the last one we were working on, the 2 hours before closing. In some, it's every day. In some, it's once a week. But if you check carefully, there is free admission. So that's always, it's good to save some money. The other thing we talked about regarding saving, and here we're going to be very clear, but I think it's something you definitely have to check, are the city's tourist passes. When we talk about tourist passes, we'll find people in favor who go and buy them without thinking, and detractors, big detractors of tourist passes. I'm a fan of the tourist pass, but it's the middle ground. It's about knowing what I'm going to get and what I'm going to do. I don't buy it just because I do some research beforehand. How am I going to do that research beforehand? And then you'll realize if that pass is going to pay off for you. Let's say we're talking about the city of Paris. So you already have your itinerary and know what you'll visit. Not just imagining you'll see 100 things, because you won't be able to do them all. So you know exactly where you're going to go I'm just giving examples, to the Louvre Museum, the Orsay Museum, and you're going to go up the Arc de Triomphe, let's say. Those 3 things, I check what the cost is for each one of them, for those 3, 5, or 10 things you're going to do in a day or 2. I add all that up, I check the price of the tourist pass for 2 days. Let's say that's what would allow me to do those 2 things. If the price of the tourist pass is lower than doing those 3, 4, or 5 things separately, obviously that's great. I get the tourist pass, I'm saving money. If the price is the same, great. I still get the tourist pass. Why? Because with that tourist pass, I get access to 50 more things that I might not have visited. But for the same price I'm paying for these, I'm going to do them. Thank you. If the math doesn't work out, if it's cheaper to get them separately, I don't buy the tourist pass. That's how we do it. No, no, no. We don't do it any other way. But what you have to check now is that most of the videos, even ours, the old ones, are outdated. They're videos that become outdated very quickly. Why? Because the tourist passes change the attractions that are included. Maybe something that's included today won't be next year, and these are videos that might be 4 or 5 years old. And the other thing is that since 2020, with the increase in tourism, many things now require a prior reservation. So I have to have my pass, and with that pass number, make a reservation at the attraction, which didn't happen before. When we started using the passes, we just walk up to the line at each place and go in. And if there was a fast track line, it was right there. Yes and no. Back then, we barely thought about it since it was so easy to get in quickly. Some things still work that way, but many now require a reservation. So those are some of the things I tell you. Pay attention before booking the pass. If we like the passes, get them knowing what we're getting into, what we're going to do. Because if not, we're going to end up losing money.
If you break even after research, they're worth it since you get in to places you weren't going to go, and some will go in and say this isn't worth it, and others will go in and be surprised because that's what has happened to us. Now, every time we have a pass, that doesn't happen.
And then they end up going into things that maybe they wouldn't want to spend money on.
That's why.
For us, for example, it was the Wax Museum. If I had to pay for the entrance to go to the Wax Museum in Amsterdam, for example, and I don't know, we would have hesitated. I think we wouldn't have done it. But it was included in the pass. So, well, I go to the ticket office. In that case, I think there was a reservation at that time. And I go in. And then, yes, I like it. I love it. And I find myself having a fun, lovely moment. But if I hadn't had the pass, no, I wouldn't have done it. So that's one of the things that makes having a pass an advantage. What other things do you think are essential when planning that first trip?
Well, you'll find someone telling you that you don't need travel insurance. It's the worst mistake any of us who travel can make if we don't have insurance. Why? Because I repeat, you might find people who say, I entered Europe through Madrid and they didn't ask me for travel insurance. They probably won't ask for it. Now, if something happens, anything at all, you'll end up mortgaging the rest of your life. You'll forget about traveling. You'll never be able to travel again because you'll be left with an incredible debt. So the cost of travel insurance compared to the total cost of the trip is minimal. So always get travel insurance. We do it through IAT or
through Go Assistant, Bobo Assistance.
Which are the ones that have given us the best results. IAT offers a discount.
And Go Bobo often has very good deals, sometimes even up to 50% off.
So,
in both cases, we've used both, depending on the situation. For example, IATI doesn't have an extra charge for people over a certain age. This sometimes happens with others. And it also has a cancellation insurance. It's also a separate insurance that you can get if you want to change your plans, mainly for the flight, right? We're booking everything else with free cancellation, so we don't need it. But if due to force majeure you can't travel, then they would cover the cost of the flights. That's what we were saying.
We use it a lot because since we book the tickets well in advance, it's useful.
That's talking about I-80 and talking about Bobo assistance. In the case of Argentinians, they have quite a few installment plans. I think that for you, Argentinians, the offers they give are quite favorable, and at many times they have offers for everyone, like 50% off. So the minimum amount that Europe requires, that an insurance has to cover, is 30,000 euros. We got it with more coverage to feel at ease, but at least it's 30,000.
But at least that
You have to have that. Honestly, it's not much.
it's going to end up being a headache if something happens to you. The other thing, which is essential today, is data, having a mobile data plan. We use Holafly, but if your carrier provides it, great, but if not, bring mobile data because it's important. It's extremely necessary for everything we talked about today. To make a reservation, to know if a restaurant is open, to know if an attraction is still open, to know what time the bus comes, or if you're taking local transportation, what time it runs. For all that, it helps us a lot to be able to let the hotel know you're arriving and that you're running late. All the information that these days we live on our phones, all the information that we need, we have it on the phone, and it helps us and saves us time too, which is part of everything. So it's the same. The cost of having mobile data is minimal compared to the whole trip. And with Holofly, it's much less because the plans with my contract in Uruguay, I could travel and have it. But with what I have, with what I pay, 3 days or 5 days of mobile data from my company, with the Fly I have.
And in the case of the Fly, it has internet, it's unlimited. In the case of Europe, it has more than 200 destinations with unlimited. The one for Europe is one of the cases where a lot of European countries are included with a single eSIM. What I always say is call your carriers. Check carefully what kind of roaming is included for you, whether it's unlimited or if you have a certain amount. And after that, find out how much it will cost to pay for it once you use up what your contract already includes. Check that first. Always call your carriers and check that. And then, in that case, well, that's when you compare. We know that we have a certain amount of gigabytes in the contract, but after that, it does cost us, that's true, which is expensive for us, so we've always chosen Fly's eSIMs for many years now. If you decide to go with an eSIM from Holafly or any other provider, make sure your phone is compatible with eSIM technology. In the case of Holafly, you can check that directly on the Holafly website. And also make sure that your phone is unlocked by your carrier, whether you want to use an eSIM, a physical SIM card, or anything else. Because if not, you won't be able to use a SIM from another carrier. So those are the two things you need to check beforehand. Other than that, we always use them. We haven't had any problems, and that's why we recommend them. For that, I'm also leaving you discounts for almost everything I'm talking about. I'm leaving the links and the discounts in the description, so this conversation doesn't get even longer than it already is. Now, let's move on to the part everyone wants, and that I think is the hardest. I don't know what you think. The budget. Everyone, what's the question they always ask you? How much does it cost to travel to Europe? It's so hard to give the exact amount of what it costs. What I was thinking is, let's walk through how to figure out those numbers. I don't know what you think. It all depends. It all depends. Yes. On the hotel I choose, on the transportation I choose, on how I'm going to eat, on what kind of attractions I'm going to visit, And all of that is going to change things for me. Let's start by looking a bit at flights. The best idea, I think, is to prepare an Excel sheet to get an idea. To make a budget, make an Excel sheet, and in the Excel, well, let's start by listing the flight. How much? How many costs? It will also vary because it's not the same from anywhere in Latin America to Europe. For us, who are so far south, we have to think about around $1,000 to $1,500. $1,000, $1,500, $1,700 on average. On the other hand, if you travel from Mexico City, I imagine it's less. For example, but from here, from the south, we know that's what it's going to be. And if we're thinking about Montevideo to Madrid, then we'll need other types of connections after that. In the Excel sheet, first, flights. Estimate how much you'll spend on a ticket from your country.
We might be able to get a better price the earlier we book it.
I had looked it up in the search engine. If I enter Montevideo, Madrid, it's giving me 1,400, 1,419 with Air Europa, for example. But here you can check on the left for checked baggage. What I was talking about? No, about the luggage. I'm searching for October, which was marked as a green month, like a cheap month. And there it is at 1,530, 1,534. But here, going with Europa and coming back with Iberia, 2,040, 2,043, 1,700 with LATAM, 1,600 with LATAM. More or less what we were talking about. And I was looking at a green month, but then keep checking. And here on the left you have, if you want it direct, with layovers. And there you go, you set the filters. If we talk later, I think in the Excel, what were we talking about? First, that the first cost should be that one.
Yes.
If you're going to use a car, also check in the same way on Discover Cars, and there you can see how much it might cost you per day. And by adding insurance, that will vary a lot depending on how far in advance you book. And
From country.
So that's already more difficult. If we're talking about hotels, we'll have to think about an average of around 150 euros per couple, more or less. From there, in big cities like Paris, the usual would be around 200 euros. But you can also stay in hostels, like we said before, so it's very relative.
That's very relative because hostel prices can go way up or way down. If you go to hostels farther from the center, so if you go to hostels,
maybe with 100 euros, you can get a room for a couple. And if not, we're still thinking. So there's a big difference depending on what we're choosing. I would also advise you to do a search. And then you can check by city because it will also depend on the cities. It's not the same to stay in Paris, Madrid, or Rome as it is to stay in Warsaw.
yes.
Right? It varies a lot. So depending on the cities you're choosing, do some research beforehand. Set the filter to free cancellation. So there you can get an average to add to that Excel sheet. Also, generally, unless the town is very popular, let's say, in towns it's cheaper to stay than in big cities. So, as I was saying, we're talking about places that don't have mass tourism. If we're talking about coastal cities or towns, like those on the Amalfi Coast, then we have to remember that the prices are high.
It's very hard to give a price because it depends on a lot of variables. It depends on the date, the place, the amenities you want, on how you want to stay, within what's available. We choose based on our possibilities and our preferences. But it's very varied. Same with the community issue. Look,
Yes.
I mean, you can eat for 20 euros, for 30 euros by buying food to take to the hotel or at a mini market. But that's very varied and everyone adapts to their needs and to their possibilities, I think.
Yes, that varies a lot. In the videos, we show when we have dinner at a restaurant we like, that we've chosen. It already includes dessert and a bottle of wine. I show you the bill next to it. But that's just so you can use it as a reference for that kind of dinner. If you go eat at a fast food place, like we said, it's going to be cheaper. If you buy food at the supermarket because you have an apartment and you're going to eat at the apartment, that's going to vary a lot. So, in that Excel sheet, check a little bit. By watching the videos, you can get an idea of what a meal at a restaurant would cost, and then look at the supermarket prices a bit. Well, on the other hand,
The
attractions. The attractions will also depend a bit on what you want to do. There are cities that have more paid activities or more expensive attractions, for example, London, where we're about to go now and we're checking. And honestly, they are.
You also have pricey attractions.
And you have,
The museums that are free,
there it is. So,
it's to find the balance.
it's the average what I was telling you today about the pass. To see how much, for so many days, the pass, how much it costs me. Don't calculate based on the total number of days you'll be there. Leave a day free because the free tour is included. And the free tours that, like in every city, are available.
Yes.
They have activities to do on foot, to see things where you don't necessarily have to pay. In all of that, regarding the budget, you would still need to add. In our case, we were adding a car. But if not using a car, you would still need to include the internal trips. Train rides. On some trains, they don't take long to get you off. For example, Madrid to Toledo if you're going to visit the city. Because they're in high demand, because there's a lot of tourism. So that's when prices can go up, or you might not find tickets. Don't leave it for the last minute. All those reservations for internal trips between cities. Well, so if we had to sum up, what should we book first? First, we put together a general itinerary.
Then we booked a flight.
We decide whether to rent a car based on the situation. If not, we use public transportation and then go to the hotels.
We make the hotel reservations, then we plan the itinerary for each city.
And then we look into making reservations for the important attractions in each city. I think we didn't explain that part very clearly. There are attractions where you absolutely have to make a reservation in advance, like going up the Eiffel Tower, for example, or the Colosseum, things like that. We leave the websites here so you can check them. These are places.
These are things where only a few people can get in at a time. Well, a city we haven't talked about is Milan. If you want to see the Last Supper, there are very few people allowed in, and with many attractions, you have to make reservations, otherwise you won't get in.
So first, check the official website, and if you can get it there, great. If there is no cancellation there, and you prefer one with cancellation, check both Civitati and Get Your Guide to see if they offer cancellation and if the price is the same. And if you can't find it on the official website, then I go to the other websites to look for it. And, well, I think that after we do that, that would pretty much be the order. I'm going to leave you here. Now, when I finish, over here on the screen, there will be a playlist of all the European cities, so you can check out the videos we have on YouTube and go over all that information we've been sharing about planning itineraries. I think that's it. We'll say goodbye for today. How did you feel, Fernando, with this new format?
What about you? How did you feel? Did you like it or find it helpful?
The idea was, well, just that. To help you plan that first trip to Europe you've dreamed about for so long.
If it weren't for Mediodos, we're not the ones who like to be on camera the most, but oh well.
What you'll find in the videos is totally different, because it's just the cities, and we don't appear in the videos. We send you a big kiss and wish you a great first trip to Europe.
Bye.
Bye.